All right. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining what is a session that I think is of incredible importance that is often, I'm not going to say overlooked because I think it's on everyone's mind, parents, students, professionals. But I don't know if they are effectively articulating in a way or thinking about in a way that will allow them to move the needle in a methodical fashion so that they become irreplaceable in the future. And so I really wanted to provide you with an opportunity to speak about how you can be a future ready student. And I don't just use the term kind of like flippantly, I use it in a way that is very, very exacting and intentional in how we want to help you prepare for the tribulations and the craziness that is happening in the academic field, in the professional field, even in personal perspectives as well. I want to give you a little bit of a background before I do. I do want to thank Rise Education for such a great opportunity to do this and have this opportunity with you to speak about this topic. I do want you guys to please let us know your thoughts about this presentation. If you found it useful, ways that we can improve it, because like the ever evolving world that we are in right now, it is mission critical that I try to get this as close to right as possible, and really be as helpful to you as I possibly can. All right. So without further ado, let me give you a quick background of who I am. I'm the founder and CEO of Right Track Admissions. Right Track Admissions is a global admissions consulting company that started back in 2008, way before AI and our future. We have to worry about that. So in the end, we started the company really under the promise of helping students, especially those with slightly weaker profiles or different backgrounds, gain admission to top academic programs. Why? Because I myself struggled with admission to top schools or into schools in general because I had a very poor standardized score. Some of you guys are well familiar with it. The GRE or the SAT or the ACT or the LSAT or the GMAT or whichever program you are taking and whatever standardized test is required. So you'll see, thankfully, I was able to flip the script because I had a very strong story and matched by a good academic grades, was able to get into some of the top schools in the world to pursue my studies. And I have zero debt from any of the schools themselves. So I think that in and of itself speaks quite well for what I was able to kind of pull off through the process. Now, as you guys see, I'm a lawyer by background, went to Berkeley for law school, but I also did my master's in Cambridge in England International Relations, and then did my second master's at Harvard at the at the Kennedy School, the School of Government. As you can see in the background there, I was giving kind of like a TED Talk of sorts at the school. In terms of my own background, in terms of my professional trajectory, which I think speaks a lot about where we are going in the future and so forth, is I am a edtech entrepreneur in terms of my admissions consulting business and the work I do and do advisory services on. I'm a lawyer, barred in California and Washington, D.C., and I am an obsessive traveler, which is not a profession, but it is a lot of fun. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm actually going to do a shameless plug for the traveling I do in here so that we can all together keep supporting me through that process. All right, so that's my background, why I feel like I'm qualified to give you guys this talk on future readiness is because I've really focused on my own education. I've been in the space for almost 18 years now. I'm in the ed tech space as well. And so I have a very clear understanding, or I hope to say that, of what employers are looking for, what schools are looking for, and how we can meet that need. All right. So let's quickly define. Actually, I should not show this to you. Let's put up our hands. Is this what you guys would imagine would be the definition of future readiness? This definition right here, or right there, right there. There it is. You can see I've got myself on the screen there. Does that look like something familiar to you guys? Is what you would imagine. Feel free to chime in. Please make this as interactive as possible. Sadly, I am nowhere near you guys geographically. I'm in Santa Monica, California. So I can't be there in person. Otherwise, I would be sitting there right there and chatting with you. So please be interactive. Use your chat. We have our colleague Kushi from Rise, who can also go through the chat messages, as well as my colleague Anna, who will go through them as well. So please feel free to put your chats there.
Hamada, we have a couple of thumbs ups.
Awesome. Thumbs ups are good. That's a good start, guys. All right. Okay. So let's quickly look at it. The ability to learn and unlearn quickly. Speed obviously is critical. How many different versions of ChatGPT do we have literally within the last 2 years? Apply new transferable skills with sound judgment. You may say, what's that? What sound judgment is? Because you're trying not to go on 50 different directions aimlessly, but you're trying to have some semblance of a path forward. Sound judgment requires an informed opinion, informed judgment. So you take all the facts and you start to pave your path. And then show evidence of impact. We're going to talk a lot about this in terms of your portfolio, your artifacts. And all of this is grounded in digital literacy, which I'm sure all of you guys know by now what that means. Adaptability, they have a new quantum for adaptability to the point that it's that important. And foresight to thrive amid constant change in the digital age. Foresight to thrive amid constant change, because that is what we're going to be hitting. And I'm going to show you why it is so critical to be adaptable with this amid this constant change as the solution to it. All right. So let's just set the scene, show this definition to you, learn and unlearn, develop transferable skills with sound judgment, develop all of this with evidence of impact, evidence, impact, outcomes, evidence produced. And all of this is grounded in the areas of digital literacy, adaptability, and foresight so that we can thrive amid constant change. Okay, so let's keep that definition in the back of our minds as we go through this. All right. Not all skills are created equal anymore. And as you can see, there's reality and there's the expectations, right? Or the expectations and the reality. So let's kind of think through this. 66% of teens are saying that they're concerned about getting a good job. You know what? The reality is there is so much research being done, especially here in America, where a lot of people are graduating from top programs, having done whatever everybody else was doing 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the past, many years in the past, of course. And those people in the past were getting jobs. These people now are not. And they're ending up struggling, wondering what they can do to really put their best foot forward, to the point that they're panicking and starting to work for Starbucks or God knows what. And they're like, I don't get it. I studied data science. I did this. I did that. And why am I not getting a job? Okay. And that's because the reality is AI is eating people's lunch, as they would say in America, from the bottom up, right? The positions that people are starting with from college, that's what the AI models are basically aiming to make redundant or at least do the work, right? And we see that. You guys constantly are hearing this. This AI model is as good as a top high school student, but this new AI model is as if you are having reasoning by a college student. This new AI model is as if you are a PhD level student, right? So they're going from the top, from the bottom up. And so that's really creating those redundancies and those areas of concern. 29% of jobs in the US are going to be fully automated by 2030. That's 30% of them. 60% will see tasks significantly altered by AI. I am a lawyer. You can only imagine what's being eaten up in terms of my own turf as a lawyer, because more and more and more, people are losing certain kind of opportunities from that perspective. In terms of automations, 50% of current skills will be obsolete in the next 5 years. 87% of companies worldwide report having or expect to have major skills gaps. And so there, my friends, is the opportunity. We're seeing, the apocalypse, the end of days, it's all over for us, right? And then boom, now companies are saying, listen, we've got major skill gaps. There's a gap in the skills, which means that we can fill the gaps to have the skills to gain the employment. What are those gaps? And that's part of the work of trying to be future ready. What can we create? What can we do to fill those gaps so that we are employable and we are relevant in the future and irreplaceable, our key term today. All right. Now, 56%, if we just said that there's an opportunity with that, if we said 56% of people are going to be getting more pay if we gain those skills with AI skills, related skills, than for those who do not have them. All right, guys. So not only do we see the end of days, but there is an opportunity And with that opportunity comes financial remuneration and further opportunities down the road. All by way of saying, do not discount what is happening. Do not overlook it. And I am sure if you are a teenager or you're in your early 20s, you are not discounting it. It's probably very front of mind. So I'm not worried about that. Okay, so that's kind of setting the expectations for everything that we're discussing today. All right. Now, let's kind of ask you guys some questions. Friends, I need your help because for whatever reason, I cannot see you guys. I can't even see the grid of the people here for whatever reason. I was just telling Kushi how much I can't stand Zoom. So I am just somehow not understanding it. And that's probably user error. It's on me. But let's kind of ask some of these questions, guys. We want to see some hands, want to see some answers in the chat. All right. How many jobs do you think you'll have in your lifetime? Just put some answers there. Any answers? If not, Kush, you're gonna have to pretend that you're everybody and answer it, so I don't embarrass myself.
Someone is saying 1 to 2.
1 to 2. So how many jobs do you think you'll have in your lifetime? 1 to 2. Kushi, what are you saying? What do you think?
Wait, I'm just letting you know what other people are also saying. Pratham
Okay.
is saying 1 or 2. I am a medical student, so hopefully will remain in the medical field. Heather is saying maybe 4 to 5, and Divyan
Okay.
is saying 2 to 4.
All right. I'm gonna tell you that Divyan is wrong by folds of times 3 to times 4. Suffice it to say, so Divyan, you went way too low. Everybody went I mean, actually, Partham went even lower. So did Qais. So I would tell you it's 12 to 15 jobs over the course of your life. I've probably already had, I can't even tell you. I'm not that old, but I'm old, but not that old. And I can tell you it's 12 to 15 jobs over the course of your life. Though the person said medical jobs, yes, you hope to be a doctor for as long as possible. But let's also think that you could go into medical technology. You could become an entrepreneur. Even though it's in the medical space, you're still having different job opportunities there. I don't think you're going to be your specialty for the next 30 years. I would say call me and let me know, but by then I'll be so damn old, I won't even remember having this conversation. All right. Next question. How many how many different careers do you think an average person will have? So this is less. These are complete career pivots. How many do you think? And the hint is it is less. Any idea how many? Okay. Partham, bam, you are very spot on. It is about, I believe the answer I think is 3 to 5 different careers over the course of your life. What do I mean by careers? I mean, like I started off as a lawyer. I then shifted over to education technology, and then who knows what I'll do later, right? And even with me, I haven't had that many career shifts, but there are people that have 3, 4 complete changes in career path. So we said 12 to 15 different jobs, up to 3 or 4 different careers, okay? That's very important. Raise your hand if you taught yourself, oops, sorry, what percentage of today's jobs didn't exist 20 years ago? Do you guys know? I'll give you that one. It's maybe a little bit harder. 35% of jobs. Ooh, actually, Partham, dude, you're on it, man. Are you ChatGPTing this? 35% of the of jobs didn't exist 20 years ago. 35%. That is bananas. So then let's leave it to the last question. Raise your hand if you've taught yourself a skill from YouTube or taken a micro credentialing course within the past 12 months. Okay, what did you actually take, Kushi?
I actually taught myself a bunch of things like making presentations or learning how to knit, just small skills here and there.
That's awesome. You should show us some of your stuff. Okay. Where did you learn it from? I assume YouTube was the knitting, but the
Yes,
presentations was
yes.
also from YouTube?
No, Udemy and Coursera. like small
Fantastic.
courses related to my academic part.
How long were the courses?
About 3 to 6 weeks, depending on
Okay,
how I am able to fulfill the requirements of the course, because it's very
fantastic.
flexible.
Super flexible, which is good and bad. Um, Fascinating. How about you guys? So Partham, AI, machine learning basics with Google Scholars, awesome. Uh, Anybody else do any course in the last 12 months? Super important. No one else? Everybody else hasn't taught themselves anything? Oh, there we go. Financial market courses, advanced Excel, financial modeling. Okay, you took it to the next level, S. All right, cool, awesome. And I think that's important because really what you ask yourself is, what does this tell us about preparing for the future? Is that there is no linear path, right? Which goes into this next one right here. How were we evaluated when we were applying to colleges? There is no linear path. Good grades, good college, stable career. No. What we're basically having is essentially, even if you have good grades and you get into a good college, there is no guarantee of a stable career. 12 to 15 different jobs, 3 to 5 different career paths. People are teaching themselves courses. Like you're telling financial markets courses, advanced Excel, financial modeling. You could learn this in school, but you're learning it on your own, and you're probably learning a lot faster, a lot cheaper, right? Uh, I learned to whistle. This is random, but this wasn't actually in the last 12 months, and I can still do it because I was learning it on YouTube. But to your point, guys, I'm taking a course right now on, it's called Hands-on AI for Leaders through Maven. And great courses teaching me how to create AI agents to allow automations and more effective workflows. Because for the work that we do, that could be very, very beneficial and save us a lot of money. But back in the day, when we were being evaluated, people thought either I go to college or no way. And a lot of you guys, I think, are from South Asia, and that's how the cultures are there. I am from the Middle East, and that's again how the culture is. If you don't go to college, you're a loser. The reality is a lot of people are teaching themselves core courses, being autodidactic, teaching it from these democratizing sources, Udemy, Coursera, Maven, master classes, all kinds of stuff on their own without going to college. Or if you do go to college, people are saying you have to do one subject and one subject only throughout the whole time. And that is changing fast. Before, they looked only at IQ, right? Core focus, academic IQ, GPA standardized tests. Still important, but not the be all end all, right? Back in the day, they looked at extracurricular check boxes. Oh, the person volunteers, check. The person did some leadership, check. The person did X, Y, and Z, check. That's it. They weren't looking at it because most people are doing a mile wide and an inch deep. Mile wide and an inch deep, just doing very basic stuff to pad their resume. Hey, what should I do? I could play soccer. I could do badminton. I can play the flute. I could do this. I could do that. And they do all of it just subsurfacely so that they could just pad their resume, as we see, we call it here resume padding, so that they could then check the box and get into a good school, right? A lot of people depended on academic legacy. A lot of people depended on superficial impact, right? A lot of people focused on testing, right? That's what it was before. And this, my friends, is changing. The whole concept is changing. In fact, Rise bases its whole motto or its whole mission on how this is changing because they're trying to provide you guys with research opportunities to show impact and evidence of work. That's very, very important to think. So that's another reason that we kind of did this together because they're a great example of what things are looking for. So what attributes are employers looking for today? Okay, here are the attributes, my friends. Here, these are not major specific. They're human skills that complement technology. Problem solving, ability to work with a team, communications. This is EQ. This is EQ. Strong work ethic, right? This is EQ, flexibility and adaptability. This is AQ. We're going to talk about that. Communication skills, verbal, EQ, and AQ. Technical skills. Oh, there we go. Finally, we get into the technical skills, right? And the quantitative skills, right? Initiative, detail oriented. Of all the top, what is this? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 skills, 8 of them are EQ and AQ related. What does that tell you about what employers are looking for, what the job market's going to look for? And here's how they were screening candidates from before. In 2017, and before this was probably even higher, probably was going up like this, it was GPA. Now look where GPA is, right? 38% are really looking to screen candidates by GPA alone. All right? They're looking, guys, for those micro credentials. They're looking for the skills, for the activity. When they put in, Partham into a job, and he's already been doing a class on machine learning and basics and AI, he's going to hit the ground running rather than someone who's just kind of doing it esoterically, doing it, just on a high, broad level. They're going to want someone who knows the skills and can apply them immediately and fill that job role. All right. So I just want to give you guys this crazy reality check of what we were being evaluated by before and what they're looking for today. All right. And this is the main thing that we're going to be talking about today, guys. This is something I put together years ago, and it keeps coming back to roost. These are what is the 6 6s. The 6 6s. Wow. The 6 C's, excuse me, the 6 6s. The 6 C's that will help you to really allow you to stand out and be future ready. This is the sauce, guys. This is it. All right. And we're going to get into this very much in detail today and practice it. All right. IQ, intelligence quotient, nothing new there. EQ, emotional quotient, right? Which is the ability. Well, you tell me, Kushi, you're going to be in the spotlight because I have nobody else who can speak to me. Everybody's texting. You tell me, what is EQ? What's an example of EQ and what is EQ?
Okay, so EQ refers to emotional quotient, and what it entails is how empathetic you are, how you're on the job, how you're able to relate to others on the job, if you're able to put yourself in their position and understand their situation and where they're coming from, etc., and how you're able to navigate different situations, accept people from different walks of life. Yeah.
Why is that important? Why is that important?
Um, Especially in today's work environment, because you're not just going to be limiting yourself to a specific area or a specific culture per se. You're going to be working globally, and you need skills that are going to help you navigate those arenas, because you're going to be interacting with people all over the world.
Perfect.
Hopefully, if a job takes you there. So yeah.
Or not. Even look at you. You're in India, I assume, and yet you're
Yeah.
working with me in California, and you have clients. You guys as clients are literally scattered all over the globe. If you don't understand and can empathize with the narratives of different people from across the world, your company is going to be in big trouble. So, uh, and then what is AQ?
I'm not actually sure about that. Like, I can just read adaptability quotient, but what I'm gathering from just that is the fact that how quickly you can learn on the job, how quickly you can adapt to a new environment, and how willing you are also to unlearn some of the things that you brought with you on the job,
and,
and that
and
no longer
relearn new
serve
stuff.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Exactly. It's about speed, agility. It's about thinking of things from a multi-dimensional perspective, that you can't tackle problems only as a doctor, but you may need to bring in a business person, an engineer, maybe think about it from a legal perspective. So you can tackle it from a multitude of perspectives to find a longer term sustainable solution that satisfies what the problem initially brought about. So let's kind of quickly break it down, because we're going to get into this really in depth, is the following. Capable, the first C, which is again understanding and really kind of learning, like we saw with Partham as a classic example. That's part of being digitally literate, right? Understanding the ethics of of AI, understanding your digital footprint, understanding how you can manipulate and work within the LLM models to best serve you and best serve your clients. Strong communication skills. We kept talking about that, right, guys? We said it right there. Verbal skills, again here, written skills. So obviously, strong communication skills are mission critical, right? Strong analytical skills to really dig into something and not just kind of leave it subsurface are keys to capable. C, curious. That's the first of the AQ, lifelong learning, adaptability, right? the ability to keep learning constantly and wanting to learn. That is so, so, so important. It's so important that I created a brand around staying curious because it's such an important part of how you grow and develop as an individual. Being creative. I'm not just talking about playing the piano, I'm talking about creative thinking, out of the box thinking, bringing in a multitude of different perspectives to solve certain problems, right? Being creative. And some of that requires creativity, right? Because people who can play the piano play instruments, know multiple languages, right? Look at different mediums of expression, allow you to think in different ways, almost like a kaleidoscope, right? Rather than just thinking black and white. I think you guys know this. Most of you probably on this call are multilingual. And when you can dream in different languages and think in different languages, allow you to see things in different ways than if you are just monolingual, if that's a term. Okay. Collaborative, that's easy peasy because we've already talked about that, right? We said it here is ability to work in a team. That's classic collaboration, right? Problem solving, that was the creativity. And then we talked about compassion. This is something that Kushi emphasized. Empathy, right? Service, ethics, thinking about others, right? And understanding of others. And then finally, commitment. We already talked about work ethic. Remember, guys, here, strong work ethic, right there. Boom. And that is your sense of commitment. That if you go to that school, you're going to finish it. If you start that job, you're going to continue it. You know that you are someone who is reliable. And I don't mean that you have to be in that position doing that same thing for the rest of your life, but that you finish the duty, they finish the task, and that you're not flaky, you're not fickle, right? That you have the grit, the perseverance. That's commitment. These are the core qualities of what will help you to be future ready. So let's break them down one by one. All right. Capable. What is it? Developing strong analytical and communication skills. For example, strong problem solving skills, digital literacy, intellectual competence. These are all things that you could learn. Why it matters. 80% of employers prioritize critical thinking over candidates' majors. We just saw that. Gives you confidence to keep adapting, right? The more capable you are, the more you use your brain, you exercise that muscle, the more you'll feel confident to keep adapting because you'll know today it's knitting, tomorrow it's presentations, the day after it's AI, right? So that's very, very important. Computational thinking, evaluating information are critical and are critically and are essential. That is important because even for me as a history major and an undergrad, as an international relations policy guy, as a lawyer, I've had to think about how can I use LLM in the best way possible so that I could actually serve my clients better as a lawyer, as a policy guy, as a education technologist, right? Is using that kind of thought process and not being scared about it, but trying to be confident. And trust me, my learning curve is like a wall compared to you guys. It's really hard for me to think in these perspectives. Again, how can you think about it in terms of your college applications? Develop those skills. Research projects with measurable outcomes, academic competitions. I love, love, love speech and debate. I don't know if you guys have it there in your schools, but in America, it's something that every school has a debate club. I think it's so important to essentially be a good public speaker because it's about convincing people, it's about relating to people, it's about empathizing with people. And to me, that's all done through words, right? Through communication. Okay. We have, complex problem solving, data driven projects. These are all things that the schools are going to look for in your applications to flex the concept of capable. And then I have a question for you there, but I'm not going to get into it because we're going to completely run out of time. How would you reduce food waste at your school? Classic example of how you can think creatively, critically, and super very much about being capable, bringing certain skills that you have to trying to solve a more pervasive problem at your school. That probably is at almost all schools. Okay. Next one is curious, right? New knowledge, embracing lifelong learning, being adaptable to change. That is what curiosity really is how you constantly are learning. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure if you looked at, this is a funny exercise. A friend of mine told me to do this. It says you go to ChatGPT and you say, hey, tell me what you would think about me in terms of all the searches I've done. I don't know if you guys have ever done something like that. And it takes all your searches for the last year or two, right? And it says, you are the kind of person that really thinks a lot about international global problems. You are somebody, because you constantly, they're looking at the searches that you're running. But that is very, very indicative and important to how you're curious, that you're constantly asking LLMs or Google questions so that you could learn faster and you can tie the dots together. Okay. Why it matters: the average person learns 5 new skills per year. Already, Kushi's at 2 this year alone. So, keep going. You got 3 more to finish it up. Curious people adapt 3 times faster to change, right? Curious people adapt 3 times faster to change. The more curious you are, the more eager you're willing to learn, the more you'll jump into something, right? It empowers learners to take active roles in achieving goals and explore real world issues. And a lot of this information I'm getting is actually from classic high schools around the world and standards that have been set in terms of these facets. This is not something I just purely created out of nowhere. They are taken from tried and tested, standardized processes around the world. Okay. College app pro tip: self-taught skills, coding, languages, instruments. You guys already mentioned some of the stuff that you guys are self-taught. Independent research projects, starting clubs or initiatives that were not explored. A good friend of mine, for example, at Harvard Law School, really wanted to get into sports law. There was no organization on campus in sports law. He created the Sports Law Journal. Suddenly, he became the main person that, at the school related to sports law, because it didn't exist there, was able to invite all these lawyers that worked for sports or organizations, and he put himself perfectly front facing with these organizations and ended up getting a job, eventually became the general counsel of a top baseball team, and now he's doing the soccer side of things, the football side. So he created an initiative just because he had an interest in it, and it's became incredibly self-serving and beneficial to him. What's one thing you're generally curious about that you've never had time to explore? I'm going to ask that question. Guys, feel free to just put it in the chat. I'm super curious to see what you guys think. All right, and I'm going to keep continuing, but you guys feel free to put that question in there. I'm super curious to see what is an area that you've always wanted to explore and that you haven't had time to do yet. Okay. Creative. What it is: again, generating innovative solutions, multidimensional thinking, embracing ambiguity. Great. Divyan talks about fintech. Super important. It's big. And if I was to give you a tiny point of advice, is break it into some small subpart that you can start tomorrow, rather than say, I want to do fintech, but I don't know where to start. Maybe you just take one small aspect of it, right? And then just focus it. Same with you, Mohammed. You're interested in neurotech. Maybe you just say, you know what? I want to know what is Neuralink. How does it work? That anchors you in one company that's doing one thing. And then from there, it opens a whole wormhole, like a thing, a rabbit hole that sends you down, and you start learning all these different things from it, right? The psychology of human beings. Again, great opportunity, but what is it? What part? Pick one. Like yesterday, I was listening to a podcast called How to Take Over the World. I love it. It's a brilliant podcast because I love history. And they were talking about Friedrich Nietzsche. It really gets in depth about Friedrich Nietzsche. It's about an hour-long podcast talking about his philosophies. And then once you do that, then it starts to open up all these doors. But just anchor it in something small, something approachable. Don't try to boil the ocean, as they say, but just try to take something small. Okay, that really helps with curiosity. We're going to get to why that's important. So we talked about creativity, embracing ambiguity, looking at things from multidimensional. Are you guys familiar with something called design thinking? Design thinking is all about that. That's what they do at Stanford, right? They bring engineers, doctors, lawyers, business people, put them in a room and say, help solve this perennial problem. And they look at it from a multitude of perspectives. Each one comes with their, maybe each one thinks that they're right, but together they come up with a solution that has real sustainability, real legs, because it's not just singularly myopic focus. Okay, super important. Why it matters: 85% jobs in 2030 won't exist, as we talked about, right? We mentioned that earlier. Creative thinkers will design will design and fill these roles. Innovative designers solve problems using untraditional solutions and methods. This is your superpower to standardize LLM models. This is how you're going to prevent obsolescence. How you become irreplaceable is if you can think of things in untraditional ways. An example, random as hell. Trisha's sitting there, she's knitting. Suddenly, from knitting, she thinks about it like, wait a second, what I'm doing now and the way I'm doing X actually has applicability to this one thing that I was thinking about in terms of how to help people with understanding this one problem in academics. AI will never do that. It's never knitting so that it could solve this other problem. It's only going to go down what is being taught, right? And I'm going to give you guys a great example of that as well. College pro tip: original, artistic, technical, entrepreneurial projects, innovative solutions to existing problems, starting a new initiative rather than just joining existing ones, right? So I want to quickly tell you about this anecdote. I was again listening to a podcast. I think this one's called Founders, another very a podcast I absolutely love, and it talked about Elon Musk. I think he's got like 6 on Elon Musk out of the 400 that he has, but this one was really good. And what he did was saying Elon constantly, he loves toys and loves video games. And what he does is sometimes he gets so locked into playing and seeing things that through that he starts to find a solution. And the example that they gave is that he had a toy car. I think of, I don't know what, Matchbox toy car. On the bottom of it was all a piece of metal from the front of the car to the end of the car. I don't know much about cars, but there's a piece of metal. I don't know what you call it, like sheet metal on the bottom. And these engineers kept coming to him and saying, hey, because the way the battery is placed on the bottom of the Tesla, every time there's road debris, it hits the battery and potentially can ignite it. Not because it's only exposed, but they were building it in small compartments. He said, look, I'm seeing this this Matchbox car, and it has a piece of metal from the start to the finish. Why can't we do that? They're like, because there's no machine that prints like that. He's like, why? He's like, because nobody ever needed it. He's like, how much would it cost? They're like, we don't know. He's like, find out for me. They created a machine that created the sheet metal to put underneath the cars from scratch because he was using creative thinking, had the car with him, thinking like a scientist, thinking like a business person, thinking as a safety individual, created a company where they said it doesn't exist. He's like, well, then let's make it exist. They created it, put that sheet metal underneath the Tesla, and it was saving them a ton of money and a ton in terms of legal fees that were otherwise causing the safety issues with the car. Okay. Again, I just was thinking about that podcast. I was like, wow, that's a great example of how you can think about things in terms of creativity. All right. I don't know what the hell that is. Okay. So collaboration. Okay. What it is, working effectively with diverse groups, nothing really new there. Why it matters, top schools are always looking at maturity, humility, to be compromised for share of goals, global collaborators. Kushi told us about that. But what's more important from all of that concept too, is that a lot of schools, guys, are doing interviews. A lot of schools are also doing something called Kira, which is asking people questions, and you have 1 minute to prepare an answer on camera. Slowly but surely, like I said, they're not going to just focus on IQ, and they're not going to focus just on your application essays because they don't even know who's writing that anymore because AI is using it. So now they're going to start focusing also on your ability and how empathetic you come off, how genuine you are, how authentic you are, right? All of these things are going to be coming with, right, this process, with the concept of being collaborative. So schools are going to be looking at that as an emotional quanta, as an EQ standard, right? So it's super important that you have evidence of being collaborative, right? Here's again the pro tips about what you should be including in the in your application in terms of the real crux of the material: cross-functional teams, working and doing international collaborations, cross-cultural. I'll give you a small example. I have clients, and some of them are quite religious Christians. And what I've told them is they don't want to just see that you're a Christian, even though that is obviously great, for you and your beliefs, but they want to see how you've worked with others, how you've collaborated. Interfaith dialogue is a key factor. So they're going to be like, ooh, here's someone that when we bring them to the school, they're not going to be like, this is us and that's them, but they're going to be people who are going to want to bring everybody together. And that's very, very important in terms of collaboration and obviously compassion. All right. What is one example where you resolved a conflict, right? A substantive conflict that you've had. Give us an example of that. And that's what you'd want to be putting into your application, right? Lastly, compassion. Basically understanding different people's perspectives, being inclusive. Digital ethics comes into here. 76% of Gen Z employees prioritize companies with strong social responsibility. That's a big factor now. So it's about empathy. Empathy leads to understanding. Understanding leads to sustainable solutions. Again, this is what Kusha was saying. She's like, when you have empathy, you understand other people's perspectives. When you understand other people's perspectives, understanding, you understand, you put yourself in their shoes and you can solve those problems, right? And how you positively can contribute to their communities. Pro tip, community service. I usually always write diversity statements and I base them in community service as an opportunity. Mentorship, how you mentor other people, right? Some of you guys are already learning some courses. Some people can't learn those courses, don't have the ability. You step up and you do that. And that's kind of meaningful impact there. So that's where I always kind of talk about college pro tips, right? Discussion, share an example of when understanding someone else's perspective changed a belief or approach you held. Guys, this is literally almost taken verbatim from the UC application, the University of California, Berkeley, UCLA, all these schools. This is from their application essays. That's a question that they really want to know. Like, how did talking to someone change your perspectives? Right? This actually also is in the Harvard Kennedy School application. It's a big part of it. We want to know how you're impacted by someone else and by how someone else impacted you. All right? Oh, sorry. The last one's committed. Nothing really novel there, which is, again, demonstrating grit, reliability, integrity. How long do you stick through things? How dedicated are you in certain activities? And that's why I kind of complete that statement with, what is one activity you've persisted through for over 2 years? Not just touched on it, but 2 years. And this is the concept of what we call a mile deep and an inch wide, getting really granular with one or two things that you do and making sure that you've exhibited the impact in it rather than doing 10 different activities at a very surface level where there is no impact. You're not taking on leadership. You're not seeing the needle moving at all. Schools want to see that kind of commitment. All right. All right. I'm going to show you guys this in terms of something that I do. This is kind of random. I just thought about this, I swear, last night. So forgive me and humor me through this. I've always been fascinated. I have an obsession about travel. Travel, then I thought, like, why am I so obsessive about travel? Maybe it's a sense of the freedom of mobility and the freedom to learn about other people and a sense of a deep-seated, insatiable curiosity that I have. So it's because I'm so curious, because because where I'm from, for the longest time, I couldn't travel. It's like one of the worst passports in the world. So I was so committed to the idea and hated the fact that I wasn't able to travel. So curiosity led me to want to learn about other cultures. Learning about other cultures has helped me be better at my job, which is helping people just like you to understand the narrative of people from all around the world so that I can help them come up with stories that allow them to apply to programs around the world, like really story crafting creation. So that then led me to saying, okay, given that I want to learn, I'm curious, given I want to learn about other cultures, given that I have this desire to a freedom of mobility and not taking it for granted, I really became obsessive about travel to the point that I've decided that I want to see every country in the world. And to the point that this is a good example of the 6 C's in action. So capable. Every place I go to, I study each destination. I read about it. I want to understand everything about it. So when I enter the country, I'm not a fish out of water, but I have a good perspective. So I study each destination. I look at it from a multitude of perspectives. Curious. My curiosity is trying to discover each culture that I go to. I don't land in a country, get a passport stamped and leave, but I really want to discover what makes those people tick, what differentiates them, why are they so different from the person across the border or across the world. Creativity. My outlet of creativity has become creating this YouTube channel, which you guys can see here, and you guys can scan it, this QR code if you want to see it. But I created this YouTube channel 3 years ago. It has been an absolute labor of love. It is not easy. There is so many phenomenal people out there that do what I do, and it's been very, very hard to stand out. But I didn't care. I just said to myself, this is something I love to do, and I want to create these vlogs because it allows me to think of things creatively. So it allows me to use my creative juices. And I call them the three E's, which is education, exploration, and entertainment: mind, body, and soul, right? That concept. So that's a creative outlet. Collaborative. I've built a team that helps me build this brand, right? People who are social media experts, people who are video editors, people who are people that give me advice in terms of folks on the ground that help me, guides, um, almost anyone, even old professors, have all become part of my team to see how we can design and create better content that allows it to really resonate with people across the world. Compassionate. The more I travel, the more tolerant I become, the more open-minded I become, the more understanding I become, right? So that's where the compassion comes in. And finally, commitment. I've been doing this for 25 years. In fact, over 25 years, I've been trying to travel and see every country in the world. And I'm now down to the final 28 countries because it's just been an obsession that I've had. And I really want to create something that I can feel very good about. And down the road, when I get older, I can kind of sit back and look at these videos and be like, wow. Now, if you look at the definition we talked about, it's to learn and unlearn quickly. And that's what I've had to do when I travel. Apply new transferable skills. Guys, if anyone's traveled, you know you constantly have to build certain skills, flex certain skills to be able to survive out there, especially if you go to countries not like your typical Paris or London, but places like Gabon and Benin and the Comoros Islands and Tajikistan and all the other places that I've been to, right? Show evidence of impact. We're going to talk about that. My evidence of impact is the engagement that I get from each one of these videos, the things that people are saying, how many people are liking it, where they're seeing it, what age groups are watching the videos, right? Super important, right? Grounded in digital literacy, I've had to learn a ton about marketing, about branding, and so forth from this. Adaptability, guys, I can't even tell you how much adaptability I've had to do and endure doing this. I remember just recently, I landed in an airport where I ended up not having a visa. I had to figure my way out of that situation so I don't get kicked out of the country, right? And then foresight to thrive amidst constant change in a digital age. All of this really is showcased in this example, in this case study that I've been able to try my best over the last 25 to achieve. So it's a good example of that. But each one of these, capable, curious, creative, collaborative, all of these are things that you don't have to do one task that serves all of them. You could do one thing that's about collaboration, one thing that's about compassion, one thing that shows commitment, or you know what I'm saying. Because that's going to be very, very important part in the next process of this. Here's a self-assessment test I want you to think about. Obviously, we don't have the time to go through it now, but we will share possibly this test with our friends at Rise Education, so that you can also take a look at it. And there's other ways to really kind of see, where do you fit? How future ready are you? And this is just one example. If you guys want to take a screenshot, or I'll share this particular slide with our colleagues so they can share it with you. Okay? But here's really something I want to kind of showcase for you: the evidence, developing your portfolio, right? So this is very, very important in the process. You want to create a series of artifacts. You don't want to just tell them, hey, I'm really good at AI. How do we know that? You don't want to just tell them, I'm really good at knitting. How do we know that? Show us, explain to us, share with us. So what I write here is explore what you love to do, apply in a real world setting, find where there's the impact and the outcome from it, and then document it. So explore. So let's, again, sorry, Kushi, I'm using you a ton. You explored, you found that you found probably knitting something that is gives you relaxes you, and it's a creative outlet, right? And it's something that's not high, it's not expensive, and it's something that is mobile, so you can take it with you and do whatever, right? So you explored, and you had these ideas, and you explored the market, and you found that this was something that you're interested in. You tried it, you loved it. You then applied it, you took the course, you really got into it, you gave yourself targets of what you want to achieve. Impact, you probably gave something you knitted to someone that you cared about. Maybe it's a family, maybe it's a loved one, what have you. And you saw their reaction. And then you documented it. Maybe you took a picture of it. Maybe you filmed it, of you showing from the knitting ball to the end result. That is a piece of artifact. That is something that Cushy can share with someone. They're not going to be like she's a BSer. She actually did it, right? So I want you guys to think about that. Projects, research, creative works, code. Use like GitHub to kind of put your code in there or put whatever ideas you have in certain places, right? Pivots, new team, tools, problems. How do we get artifacts of learning? Here's the evidence: data, testimonials, recommendations, metrics, positive digital footprint, right? A sock, a beanie, right? Credentials, certificates, micro or skills development showing skills mastered through practice. And we already talked about these micro credentials. You guys are taking them right now, right? Using Udemy and Coursera and Maven and Masterclass. These are all micro credentials, and you build them up, not aimlessly, but you build them towards a goal, right? And then you have a reflection documentation, which is super, super, super important, guys. Because what you're doing is you're saying to yourself, I'm going to think through. Let's just again use the example, maybe uh, a smaller example, and I'm sure Kushi has a bazillion others. But maybe Kushi says, I'm going to journal and I'm going to show what knitting has done for me. I was super stressed out today, and I knitted. Made me relax. When it made me relax, it made me think. And when it made me think, I became more understanding of the stressful situation, which then made me go and talk to the person to reach a compromise, whatever it is. It's a series of notes, but she put it down. Then she forgot about it in a year. 2 years later, she comes back to it. She's like, holy crap, I remember that. I remember that. And now it becomes a point that she can mention in an interview. She can mention it in her resume. She can mention it in her application materials, right? All kinds of opportunities that can come from it if you document it, right? And so I kind of tell you guys right here: journals, GitHub, cloud drive, sites, all that kind of stuff. Write those things down. They're mission critical. Okay. I don't have too much time to talk about this because it started a little bit later than I wanted. But what we have here is, how do we take the 6 C's and all this evidence that you've collected and apply it to story crafting that allows you to write your essay for college or the story you're going to have when you're applying for jobs or pivots or whatever else? And maybe if Rise wants to, I can do another session on story crafting, because this is a whole session in itself. This is something I created. The story arc is something that's existed forever, but I created it with the key components for the personal statement for schools, okay? Using the A, B, C, D, E, F of the personal statement process, okay? And what you do is you identify the formulas, you identify your top C's, the ones you've really over-indexed on, you've done a lot of. You collect and build your portfolio. You map those C's and the portfolio to this concept, and then you start writing it out, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to really hone in on the outcomes, the impact. Outcomes and impact is so important. They want to see that. They don't want to just see you kind of flying away, but what did it do? And I don't mean that you changed the world. Even the fact that Kushi was knitting, it made her calmer. It made her more relaxed. It made her more agreeable with other people. That may just be with herself, but it had an outcome, an impact, and that's important, right? And then once you've written this out and you've come up with this, and again, there's other ways. I'm just showing you how this works to this concept. But this concept in and of itself, story crafting, story creation, is very, very key, and it's an art. And this is something that we do and we've been doing for a long, long time. So I'm just showing you how this will eventually fill these different buckets for the story crafting process, which is extremely important if you're applying to colleges or graduate degrees. Okay. And finally, and this is something I'm also going to give Kushi and the team at Rise, is our implementation plan. And guys, by no means is this the implementation plan. This is just an implementation plan. Guys, do you remember when I told you that, like, the person who was interested in the psychology of human beings, or the person that was interested in nanotech, or the person that was, or neurotech, and the person that's interested in fintech, and I told you guys, just take something small, tiny, and then let that become the seed that then grows to become something bigger, as opposed to trying to boil the ocean? This is a good example of how you do that. You start with 30-day increments and you build off of it. You start with just saying, let me take the self-assessment. I'm kind of deficient in these areas, but I'm really good in these areas. Then let's learn one micro skill with a measurable competency, right? With showing how you've actually been able to grow from 0 to 1, right? Apply that skill to solve one real problem. These are just very general, and then document it. Then we have a 90-day, how you start to expand that. Then you have the 180-day, how you start leading a team and doing something bigger, and then having something you can present to people. And all of it has to be measurable, impact oriented, and um, and collected in evidence. And then finally, after 365 days, you start mentoring other people in their own journeys, submitting your applications to schools and so forth. Small actions, real skills, portfolio of evidence, future success. That's the formula, guys. Constantly think about that. And I'll share these slides with Kushi for that purpose. All right, guys, quickly tell you kind of who we are in the last minutes. We cover this stuff from the ninth grade, which essentially is 4 years before you graduate from high school. So whatever the equivalent would be in your respective countries, right? We're already working with you to kind of figure out what are your areas of passion? How can we apply that in terms of experiences? What outcomes can we get from those experiences? How can we document those outcomes? And then how can we apply it in terms of your portfolio, in terms of your story, in terms of your profile? Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Same. Find that passion, get the experience, apply, get the experience, figure out the outcomes, document the outcomes, apply it to your profile, to your story. Right? We start that at the ninth grade. We expand it using Seed in the 10th grade. We then use college orientation and mentorship pre-application services or Compass in the 11th grade, and then finally in the 12th grade we help you put this together. I'm just showing this to you how it works with college applications. But this whole process of developing your profile and developing these core qualities, these 6 C's, doesn't necessarily need to lead to college. It could be leading you for jobs. It could lead to micro credentials. It could lead to your own entrepreneurial gigs, right? It's not just oriented to school. It just so happens that we've been focusing on the school part for a very, very long time. Okay, and that is our basic bread and butter. The other thing I want to quickly share with you guys is I wrote the book, The College Admissions Mastery Guide and the Mastery Course, which covers everything you'll need to know about applying to college, some of which you've already covered today, and a bunch of stuff that we haven't, including the story crafting process. So if this is something of interest to you, please feel free to check it out. We'll put this in the chat. Actually, I'll put it right here. And then we'll also share it with Kuchi so that she can share it with you guys. This is a course that we created and a guide that you can download so that you can really prepare yourself as best as possible. And it's based on 18 years of my learning and then creating this company. All right. And then finally, I just want to leave you with this question. The question isn't whether AI will change the world, it's whether you will be future ready to change with it and become irreplaceable, guys. That is the key to success for your future. All right. Thank you very much, guys. I know we are up against it. We finished with 1 minute to spare. You guys have my contact information, our email, our website, but more importantly, our colleagues at Rise will also have this information. We're hopefully working with them so that we can be able to provide you guys with information just like this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'll stick around for a couple extra minutes. Should you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. Otherwise, we look forward to getting your emails and asking any questions also to Kushi and the Rise team, and she can send that information to us.
Hamada, there's a question in the chat. Do you want me to read it out for you, or are you able to view it?
I think I can read it. It says, it was very helpful. I was wondering what your recommendations would be for me as a medical student regarding skills acquisition in medical tech. As you mentioned near the start of your talk, it is really worth it spending time coding for me when I could build value via my clinical background. Also, I'm at Cambridge, actually, so it was nice to see that you're a fellow Cambridgian. Yes, I was at Pembroke College. Very interesting. Do me a favor, Partham. I actually, so randomly, but I work in medical tech, advising a company that's a Y Combinator company that focuses on medical technology and trying to focus on an area of preventive health and lifestyle medicine. And I can tell you from the experience I had is that you as a doctor, including the chief medical officer of the company I work with, learning to code yourself is definitely not something you should be wasting your time on. Using companies like Riplet or others that allow you to code much more easy in terms of blocks is going to be much more advantageous. But what you should be doing, and this is something you can constantly be doing, Partham, is lending your expertise to medical technology companies, which are always seeking doctors to provide input to test out if their products and processes make sense, because a lot of technologists don't have that background. So you doing that not only gives you gives you experience that we talked about, but it gives you outcomes and it gives you documentation evidence so that you can start building that portfolio of skills, which then you can amplify should you want to get more into the medical technology space, period, to kind of either complement or in lieu of working as a clinician down the road. And I know this again because I'm constantly surrounded. Doctors come to us, medical practitioners come to us constantly, and we're always happy to provide them with advice and guidance and give them those opportunities as well to work in those spaces. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a idea, but I would not take up time doing something that other people can easily do. What you have, that's your superpower, is you have a medical background and you're interested in technology. Putting those together, you're going to be unstoppable because you've got to look out of the box. You can't just think of yourself only as a clinician, which is kind of where you're kind of heading in that way. Kind of is partially obscured behind your online screen of my avatar. That's not even my avatar. I think that's me. It's the weirdest thing. Hang on, let me see if I can get rid of myself. I don't even know if I can get rid of myself. As I was telling Kushi, I'm like struggling with that. But I'll put it in the message. It is
Yeah, you can just put
info.
it in the group chat.
No worries. This is the group chat, and this is the website as well, guys. All right. I think I've answered the questions that we had. I appreciate you guys. Oh, nice. Peterhouse. I was right across the street. I remember it very well. Actually, Peterhouse is the oldest of the colleges, if I remember correctly, in Cambridge. I had some great days there. A guy from California punting down the river. Very odd, but I did it. I had even crazier hair at the time. Okay, my friends, I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys, Rise, for allowing me to do this. And hopefully we'll have more opportunities to do more of this.